I'll never forget the sound of Iris's laughter as security dragged me across the marble floor. My husband stood there, champagne in hand, watching like I was nothing. The guests pulled out their phones, recording my humiliation for entertainment. He told me I was worthless, that everything belonged to him. But here's what that arrogant fool didn't know. Every inch of that mansion, every marble tile he stood on, even the air he breathed in that house, it all belonged to my father. And in exactly 12 hours, his entire world would crumble. My name is Josephine, and 3 years ago I thought I'd found my fairy tale. Today, I'm going to tell you how I lost everything in one brutal night, and how I got it all back with interest. But more than that, I'm going to tell you about the sweetest revenge I never even planned. If you believe that what goes around comes around, you're going to want to hear every word of this story. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button right now, because I promise you, this is unlike anything you've heard before. It started like a dream. I was 26, teaching literature at a public school, living in a tiny apartment with secondhand furniture and plants I kept forgetting to water. My life was simple, maybe even boring, but it was mine. Then I met Gregory at a charity fundraiser. He was tall, confident, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He owned a tech company, drove a silver sports car, and when he smiled at me across that crowded room, I felt like the only woman in the world. Our romance moved fast. Too fast, maybe. Within 3 months, he proposed with a diamond ring so big I was afraid to wear it outside. 6 months later, we were married in a ceremony that looked like something out of a magazine. White roses everywhere, a 7-tier cake, 200 guests. My father came, of course. Dad had always been my rock after Mom died when I was 15. He raised me alone, worked hard, lived modestly. At the wedding, he wore his best suit, which wasn't very fancy, and Gregory's family barely spoke to him. I heard Gregory's mother whisper to someone that my father looked like the help. It stung, but Gregory kissed me and told me not to worry about it, that we were starting our own family now. The mansion took my breath away the first time I saw it. White stone exterior, tall columns, a circular driveway with a fountain in the center. Inside, everything gleamed. Crystal chandeliers, sweeping staircases, rooms I didn't even know what to do with. Gregory carried me over the threshold and told me this was our kingdom. He said he'd built his empire from nothing, and now I was his queen. I believed every word. For the first year, life felt magical. I quit teaching because Gregory insisted his wife shouldn't work. I spent my days redecorating rooms, planning dinner parties, trying to fit into this new world. The staff was kind. Maria, the housekeeper, always snuck me extra cookies when I looked sad. Ben, the old gardener, taught me the names of all the roses. They felt more like family than Gregory's actual family ever did, but I was happy. Or at least, I thought I was. The change came slowly at first. Gregory started working later, coming home after I'd already gone to bed. When I'd ask about his day, he'd snap at me, say I wouldn't understand the pressure he was under. He stopped touching me the way he used to. Stopped looking at me at all, really. Then came the phone calls he'd take in another room, the smell of perfume that wasn't mine, the receipts I'd find in his pockets from restaurants we'd never been to together. I'm not stupid. I knew something was wrong, but I kept telling myself I was being paranoid, that successful men work hard and I should be more understanding. Until the day I met her. Iris walked into our home like she owned it. Blonde hair, perfectly styled, designer clothes, sharp eyes that looked right through me. Gregory introduced her as his new business consultant. She shook my hand with a grip that felt like a warning, and when Gregory wasn't looking, she smiled at me in a way that made my blood run cold. After that, Iris was everywhere. She came to our house for meetings that lasted hours. I'd bring them coffee and she'd barely acknowledge me, but I'd catch her laughing at Gregory's jokes, touching his arm, leaning in close. The staff noticed too. Maria started giving me these pitying looks that made me want to cry. One day, Ben pulled me aside in the garden and said, "Mrs. Josephine, you're too good for what's happening here." But what could I do? Gregory was my husband. I'd made vows. I finally broke down and hired a private investigator with money I'd saved from before the marriage. The photos arrived in a brown envelope one Tuesday afternoon. Gregory and Iris at a hotel downtown. Gregory and Iris holding hands at a restaurant. Gregory kissing her in his car. My hands shook so badly I dropped them all over the kitchen floor. I sat there among the scattered evidence of my husband's betrayal and cried until I couldn't breathe. I decided to confront him. I planned it out. I'd wait until we were alone, show him the photos, ask him how he could do this to us. I wanted to give him a chance to explain, to apologize, to maybe save our marriage. I never got that chance, because Gregory had his own plans, and they were so much worse than anything I could have imagined. He told me we were having a dinner party, nothing unusual. We hosted them all the time. I put on a nice blue dress, did my makeup, prepared myself to play the perfect hostess one more time. When the guests started arriving, I noticed there were more than usual. Business associates, some neighbors, people I barely knew, and Iris, of course, wearing a tight white dress and my pearl necklace. The one Gregory gave me for our anniversary. I stared at her throat, at my jewelry on her skin, and felt something inside me crack. Dinner was tense. I could barely eat. Gregory kept refilling everyone's wine glasses, laughing too loud, touching Iris's shoulder when he thought I wasn't looking. I watched it all through a fog, feeling like I was drowning. Then, halfway through the main course, Gregory stood up. He tapped his glass with a fork, and the room went quiet. Everyone turned to look at him. I thought maybe he was going to announce a business deal or make a toast. I had no idea I was about to live through the worst moment of my life. "I have an announcement," Gregory said, his voice carrying across the dining room. He was smiling. Actually smiling. "I want a divorce." The words hung in the air like poison. I couldn't breathe. Someone gasped. I looked at Gregory, waiting for him to say he was joking, that this was some kind of terrible prank. But he wasn't looking at me. He was looking at Iris. She stood up slowly, walked over to him, and he put his arm around her waist, right there, in front of everyone, in front of me. "Gregory," I whispered, my voice barely working. "What are you doing?" He finally looked at me then, and his eyes were cold, colder than I'd ever seen them. "I'm done pretending, Josephine. I'm in love with Iris. I have been for months. And honestly, you've been a burden from the start. Living off my money, in my house, contributing nothing." The room was dead silent. I could feel everyone staring at me. My face burned with shame. Iris laughed, this high, cruel sound that cut right through me. "Oh, honey," she said, looking at me like I was a stray dog. "Did you really think a man like Gregory would stay with someone so ordinary forever? You were just a phase, a charity case." I tried to stand, but my legs wouldn't work. "Gregory, please, can we talk about this privately? This isn't—" "There's nothing to talk about." He turned to someone behind me, and I heard footsteps. Heavy footsteps. 2 security guards appeared on either side of my chair. My heart started racing. "Remove her," Gregory said like he was asking someone to take out the trash. "Now!" "What? No, Gregory, you can't—" But they were already grabbing my arms, hauling me up out of my chair. I heard gasps, whispers, someone giggling nervously. Iris was smiling, actually smiling, as I struggled against the guard's grip. "You have 10 minutes, Gregory said. "Take your clothes. Everything else stays. It's mine, all of it." They dragged me through the dining room, past all those watching faces. Some people looked away. Others held up their phones, recording. One man was actually laughing, like this was the best entertainment he'd seen in years. I saw Maria standing in the doorway to the kitchen, tears streaming down her face, but she couldn't help me. Ben was visible through a window, his old face twisted in pain, but what could he do? They hauled me up the stairs to the bedroom, our bedroom, and threw me inside. "Pack! Fast!" one of them said. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely open drawers. I grabbed random clothes, stuffing them into a suitcase. I found the photo of my mother I kept on the nightstand and clutched it to my chest. Behind me, I heard Iris's laughter echoing through the house, and I wanted to die. When I came back down those grand stairs one last time, they were all still there, watching, waiting. Gregory and Iris were kissing at the bottom of the staircase, his hands in her hair, putting on a show. When they finally broke apart, Iris looked up at me and smiled. "Thanks for keeping the bed warm," she said. Some people actually laughed. The security guards walked me to the front door, to the gates, and then I was outside, alone in the dark, holding one small suitcase with everything I had left in the world. The mansion gates closed behind me with a heavy clang that sounded like a cell door. I could hear music starting up inside. They were celebrating my humiliation, my pain, my destruction. It started to rain. Of course it did. I sat down on the wet curb outside what used to be my home and let myself cry. Not gentle tears, ugly, gasping sobs that tore out of my chest. I had nowhere to go, no job, no money of my own, just a suitcase full of random clothes and a broken heart. For 20 minutes I sat there in the rain, wondering how my life had fallen apart so completely. Finally, I pulled out my phone and called the only person I had left, my father. He answered on the second ring, his voice warm and familiar. "Hello, sweetheart." I couldn't even speak at first, just cried into the phone while he waited patiently. When I finally managed to tell him what happened, how Gregory threw me out, how Iris wore my necklace, how people recorded it all on their phones, I expected anger, outrage. Instead, there was a long pause, and then my father said something strange. "Come to Winston & Associates law firm tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock sharp." "Dad, I don't need a lawyer right now, I need a place to stay." "Everything's arranged," he said, and his voice had this odd quality I'd never heard before. Almost amused. "I've booked you the presidential suite at Hotel Grandeur. A car will pick you up in 10 minutes. Take a hot shower, order room service, get some sleep. And Josephine? Trust me, everything is going to be fine." The presidential suite. My father, who'd lived in the same modest cottage my entire life, who bought his clothes at discount stores, who I'd never seen spend money on anything unnecessary. How could he afford the presidential suite at the most expensive hotel in the city? But I was too tired and broken to argue. The car came, just like he said. The hotel staff treated me like royalty. The suite was bigger than my old apartment. I took a shower that lasted an hour, ordered food I couldn't taste, and fell asleep wondering what my father was planning. The next morning, I stood outside Winston & Associates, one of the most prestigious law firms in the state. I'd walked past this building before, seen the expensive cars outside, and wondered what kind of people could afford their services. Now I was walking through their doors, following directions to the top floor. When the elevator opened, my father was waiting. But he wasn't alone. 3 men in expensive suits surrounded him, and they were treating him like he was someone important. Very important. "Mr. Morrison," one of them said, a distinguished older man with silver hair. "Wonderful to see you. Everything is prepared, just as you requested." Morrison. That was my mother's maiden name, not my father's. What was going on? Dad saw my confusion and smiled, a strange, sad smile that made him look older somehow. "Come on, sweetheart. We need to talk." They led us to a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows and a table that could seat 20 people. Files covered the table. Lots and lots of files. The silver-haired man introduced himself as Mr. Patterson, senior partner. Then he and the others left us alone. My father sat down heavily and gestured for me to do the same. For a long moment he just looked at me. Then he said, "Josephine, I need to tell you who I really am." And that's when my entire understanding of my life shattered. My father wasn't just a retired property manager like he'd always told me. He was Harold Morrison, one of the biggest real estate developers in the state. He owned Morrison Properties, a company worth over $500 million. He owned 47 properties, commercial buildings, hotels, apartment complexes, and estates, including the one Gregory had just thrown me out of. I couldn't speak, couldn't even process what he was saying. My father, who wore flannel shirts and drove a 15-year-old truck, was a multi-millionaire? It made no sense. He pulled out documents, showed me property deeds, bank statements. All real. All true. "Why?" I finally managed to whisper. "Why didn't you tell me?" His eyes filled with tears. "Because of your mother," he said quietly. 30 years ago, I built that mansion. It was going to be our dream home. Then she got sick. Cancer. She died before we ever moved in. I couldn't bear to live there without her, so I moved to the cottage where we'd first started out. I kept the mansion, rented it out over the years. The money meant nothing to me anymore." He explained everything. 3 years ago, Gregory had approached him about renting the property. My father, dressed in his usual simple clothes, met with him. Gregory assumed he was just a property manager and treated him accordingly, with barely concealed contempt. But the lease was drawn up. $15,000 a month. Gregory never owned that house. He'd been renting it the entire time, telling everyone it was his, living a lie. "When you fell in love with him," Dad continued, "I investigated Gregory. Saw he was successful but arrogant. I wanted to see if he truly loved you or just wanted a pretty wife as an accessory. So I kept my wealth secret. I came to your wedding in my old suit and let his family mock me. I watched him treat you like you were beneath him. I gave him 3 years, Josephine. 3 years to prove he was worthy of you." "And he failed," I said, my voice hollow. "He failed spectacularly." Dad opened another file. "And now he's going to pay for it, because that mansion he threw you out of, I own it. His office at Morrison Plaza, I own the building. His second office at Harbor Center, mine too. His leased car from Premium Auto Group, I'm the primary investor. His membership at the yacht club, I sit on the board. Gregory's entire life is built on my empire, and he has no idea." Mr. Patterson came back in with more documents, eviction notices, lease terminations, a complete breakdown of every way Gregory's life was connected to my father's businesses. And then Dad said the words I'll never forget. "We're going to that mansion right now, and we're taking back everything that's mine." The drive back to the mansion felt surreal. I sat in my father's car, which I now realized was a brand new luxury sedan he'd probably been hiding in a garage somewhere, with Mr. Patterson and 2 police officers following behind us. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Part of me wanted to see Gregory's face when he realized the truth. Another part just wanted to disappear. When we pulled up to those gates, I felt sick. This place had been my prison and my home, my dream and my nightmare. Iris answered the door in a silk robe, her hair messy, clearly having spent the night. When she saw me, she sneered, "What do you want? Come to beg?" My father stepped forward, and something in his posture made her step back. "I'm here to see Gregory, now." "Gregory is busy and you're trespassing." "Actually," Mr. Patterson said smoothly, stepping up beside my father, "this is Mr. Harold Morrison's property. We have the deed right here. You're the one trespassing." Iris's face went pale. She tried to slam the door, but one of the police officers stopped it. We heard Gregory's voice from inside, annoyed. "Iris, who is it?" He appeared at the top of the stairs in expensive pajamas, looking irritated. When he saw us, his expression shifted to confusion, then amusement. "Harold? What's this about? Did you come to beg me to take your pathetic daughter back?" My father didn't smile, didn't react at all. He just nodded to Mr. Patterson, who stepped forward and handed Gregory a stack of papers. "Mr. Gregory, these are eviction notices. You have 24 hours to vacate this property." Gregory laughed, actually laughed. "Evict me? From my house? Old man, did you hit your head? This is my property. I bought it fair and square." "No," my father said quietly. "You didn't. You've been renting it. From me. For 3 years." I watched Gregory's face as he read the documents, watched the color drain from his skin, watched his hands start to shake. This says you own everything," Dad finished. "The house, the land, all of it. You're a tenant, Gregory, one who's 2 months behind on rent, I might add, and as of this moment, your lease is terminated." The silence that followed was deafening. Gregory looked at my father like he was seeing a ghost. "You're the landlord? But you're nobody. "I'm Harold Morrison," my father said, and his voice could have cut glass. "I own Morrison Properties. I'm worth over $500 million, and you, Gregory, threw my daughter out of my house like she was garbage. while living off my generosity, while pretending you were something you're not." Iris made a sound like a wounded animal. "Gregory, what is he talking about? You told me you owned this house." I thought—" Gregory was stammering now, the confident businessman completely gone. Mr. Patterson wasn't finished. "Also, Mr. Gregory, your office lease at Morrison Plaza? Terminated. Your second office at Harbor Center? Also Mr. Morrison's property? Terminated. Your car lease through Premium Auto Group? Mr. Morrison is the primary investor. The vehicle will be repossessed within the hour." Gregory's knees actually buckled. He grabbed the stair railing to keep from falling. "This will ruin me," he whispered. "You should have thought of that," my father said, his voice like ice. "Before you humiliated my daughter in front of a crowd, before you had her dragged through this house by security guards, before you made her sit in the rain with nowhere to go." That's when Iris turned on him. The woman who'd laughed as I was thrown out, who'd kissed him at the bottom of the stairs, who'd worn my jewelry like a trophy, she looked at Gregory with pure disgust. "You don't even own this place? You've been lying to me? I thought you were a millionaire." "Iris, please, let me explain." "Explain what? That you're broke? That you're a fraud?" She was already running up the stairs, and we could hear her slamming drawers, throwing things into bags. 5 minutes later, she came back down with 3 designer suitcases. She walked right past Gregory without even looking at him. At the door, she paused and turned back. "By the way, your business partner called this morning. Something about pulling his investment? Have fun being poor." And then she was gone. Just like that. The woman Gregory had destroyed our marriage for didn't even care enough to stay for the fallout. He called after her, his voice breaking, but the door had already slammed shut. Gregory turned to me then, and he was crying. Actually crying. He fell to his knees right there in the foyer. The same foyer where he'd humiliated me 12 hours earlier. "Josephine, please, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I made a mistake. Please forgive me. We can work this out." I looked down at him. This man who'd called me worthless, who'd made me feel small and useless for 3 years, who'd thrown me out in front of a laughing crowd while his mistress wore my jewelry, and I felt nothing. No anger. No satisfaction. Just a strange, calm emptiness. "You wanted me gone," I said softly. "So I'm letting you go, too. You have 24 hours, Gregory, just like you gave me 10 minutes. The police officer stepped forward with the official eviction notice. My father put his hand on my shoulder, and we walked out together. Behind us, I could hear Gregory sobbing, begging, his voice getting smaller as we moved away. The gates closed, and this time I was on the right side of them. The next few weeks moved like a dream. Gregory was formally evicted. The story leaked to the press. Tech mogul evicted from rented mansion after throwing out wife. And it spread like wildfire. His business partners dropped him. His investors pulled out. Within a month, his company filed for bankruptcy. He moved to a small apartment across town, and the last I heard he was working middle management somewhere, the life he'd built on lies completely demolished. Iris moved on to her next target within days. I saw photos of her with some other wealthy man, wearing the same predatory smile. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Maria and Ben came to see me a week after everything happened. They told me they'd always known something was wrong, that Gregory had treated them terribly, but they needed their jobs, so they stayed quiet. My father hired them both back immediately with significant raises. Maria cried and hugged me for 5 minutes straight. As for me, I moved back into the mansion, but it felt different now. Lighter, somehow. I started teaching again at a private school, using the name Morrison instead of Gregory's surname. I began a foundation called Second Chances, helping women who'd escaped difficult marriages, using my story to show them they could rebuild. My father visited every Sunday, and we'd have dinner in the garden where Ben kept the roses blooming. 6 months later, I was finally healing. The betrayal still hurt sometimes, but it was a distant ache now rather than a fresh wound. I'd learned that true power doesn't need to announce itself, that dignity is worth more than diamonds, that the people who truly love you don't need you to be anyone other than who you are. So that's my story. The night I lost everything taught me what I'd actually had all along, a father who loved me enough to let me make my own choices, even when it hurt to watch, the strength to survive the worst moment of my life, and the knowledge that karma doesn't forget anyone. If this story touched you, hit that like button right now. If you believe that what goes around comes around, share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you've ever been underestimated, ever been told you're not enough, leave me a comment below. I read every single one, and I want you to know you are enough. You always were. Subscribe to this channel because next week I'm sharing the story of the woman who donated her kidney to save her sister's life, only to discover her sister was sleeping with her husband. What happened next will leave you speechless. Remember what my father taught me: never judge someone by how they look or where they live. The most powerful people in the world often walk among us quietly, watching, waiting, protecting the ones they love. My father looked ordinary, but he owned an empire, and when the time came, he used every bit of that power to defend his daughter. I'm Josephine. Stay strong, stay dignified, and never let anyone convince you that you're less than you are, because you never know. The person they're underestimating might just own everything they think is theirs.